I want you to think about this first. Ask yourself, have you ever made a decision while you were hungry? If you are still a college student, you can probably recall more times than not when making this type of decision. But let me tell you this, if you could, your decision making would have been a lot better if you were full. Let me break this down for you, and I know it's quite a random topic, but the other day while I was in the shower, this thought suddenly came into my head. And to be honest, I don't think many people have talked about this topic before. You see, when I was in university, I could recall so many moments where I made decisions when I was hungry. And the stereotype that every college student is broke is true to an extent. Most college students are actually not broke. But you see, most of us at this time probably allocated our money elsewhere. And as someone who used college primarily to basically develop and get experience in life, I can 100% agree to this. Unless you were an international student who had CEOs or royalty as parents, you could probably relate to what I'm saying right now. And don't get me wrong, it wasn't that food wasn't important, but going out on weekends and spending money on alcohol just sounded more pleasing at the time. But as we all know, trying to make decisions while you're hungry has to be one of the hardest things in the world. So picture this, after spring break, aka partying the whole weekend, all of us had that one professor that decides to put an exam on the day you get back. And in most cases, spring break is quite rough, not only for your liver, but also your wallet. Because nowadays, alcohol can almost cost an arm and a leg. And when you're drunk, money seems to not be a concept that we understand. So in most cases, you're probably coming into that exam either hungover, or probably hungry, or all the above. And you probably had sleep for dinner the previous night, or in some cases, you had the 2 remaining Red Bull in your fridge because you had to cram study the night before. And you probably only had a slice of bread because you had to rush and ran out your dorm because you woke up late just so that you can make it in time for your exam at 9. And what made this particularly worse is that the exam I had to take was actually a difficult one. I can remember vividly that this exam was one of the hardest, most brutal multiple choice exams I had to take in university. And did it help that I partied the whole week instead of locking in and studying? Probably not, but since I was a first year student, I wouldn't have it any other way. And yeah, I know walking into that exam I looked like death. And I'm pretty sure when I walked out that exam, my soul left my body. But at the end of the day, grades are just grades. The experiences you'll get in university are some things that you just can't get back. And I can promise you, experiences are things that I could never trade off for anything in this world. But let me stay on topic. So I knew deep down if I ate something a little healthier that evening, I could have probably not had a disgusting crash before having my exam. And just maybe if I decided to have something that actually filled me up prior to writing my exam that day, I can certainly say that I would have at least passed my exam. Because if you really think about it, if you're making decisions when you're hungry, everything in your brain begins to start getting foggy. And if you haven't tried this yet, give it a try and let me know. But this doesn't only apply to taking exams. This actually applies to everything that you do. And the exam example was something that I just thought of in the moment because that was something I experienced lots during my first year in university. But this applies to almost everything you do on a daily basis. And let me break this more down for you. I'll use more common examples that I see nowadays. So imagine this, you're going into a grocery store extremely hungry. what would you typically do? Because in most cases, if you walk into a grocery store disgustingly hungry, more cases than not, you probably are walking away with the trashiest type of food or a grocery bill over $100 more than you usually budget for. And you might question, why? And my answer to this, it's probably because you were hungry. Because subconsciously, when you're hungry, it really starts to begin to affect you. Your brain starts to make irrational decisions based off of the emotions you're feeling in the moment. That's why it's so much easier for you to walk out of a grocery store with pizza pops, bags of chips, and soda instead of your typical clean Whole Foods. Your mind subconsciously goes through the thought process of what is more pleasurable at this moment. And just like with any emotion, when heightened, irrational thinking takes over and logic goes straight out the window. That's why every time when I go to the grocery store, I typically like to eat prior. Because how grocery stores are set up nowadays actually doesn't help with overconsumption. Just like a casino using loud sounds and bright colors to attract unassuming 20-year-old gamblers, grocery stores does the same thing. And it is more common nowadays to see in groceries big signs promoting their biggest discounted items or more deals with buy one get one deals. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with this. And recently I've just gotten interested on the topic of marketing. And this is one of the factors I see commonly used by professionals as a way to basically promote and make people buy more things in the store. And this only gets exponentially worse when a consumer isn't thinking straight. It's almost like saying you're only going to have one beer tonight, but you already have another beer in your hand. Sounds pretty quite counterintuitive if you ask me. But this doesn't only just apply at grocery stores. This can actually apply to when you interact with people as well. You see, during my time in high school, I used to compete in boxing. And I can remember this memory vividly because it was one random practice and all of a sudden my coach approached me and he asked me if I wanted to fight in my first ever match. But there was a catch. I had to lose weight before fighting because he thought I wouldn't have basically done well at my current weight because I was quite heavier at the time, and that was actually the main reason why I started to do boxing in the first place. However, the moment you start competing, especially for boxing, healthy weight loss started to become a myth. And at the time I didn't know any better, but this has to be one of the most unhealthiest things I've done in my life. In a span of 1.5 months before my first match, the coach made me lose over 35 pounds of weight. And although it had its benefits like building discipline, it was truly miserable. I could recall so many times where I just crashed out at people. I crashed out at my brother, my close friends, and even my parents. Because at this point, I was super close to starving myself. And I would basically barely have anything to eat for breakfast or for lunch. And then I would probably just skip dinner just so that I could make weight. And that's why you see most athletes who fight have to go into camps, because in most cases, these people are not in the right mindset to be talking or interacting with normal people. And I can remember vividly the crash outs I had were really not warranted. I crashed out about the littlest things in the world. And to be quite honest with you, this had to be one of the worst feelings ever. So to sum everything up, just try your best to do or make decisions when you're full. I promise you this will go a long way and surely will help you create better decisions in the long run. Now, don't go overboard and overeat. That's actually going to be another topic for another day that I'd like to touch on. But until then, stay true, stay pushing, and I'll see you on the next one. Peace.